You have a horse that's very head shy. You put your hand up there and or you go to put the halter and the bridle on, and it's not a learned behavior. If you can't easily train your horse not to do that, then it's pain and tension. So once you understand that, then you don't blame your horse for doing that. He's being a jerk, right?
Yep.
So that's helpful. And then the next question might be, well, why does he have that? So then you can start exploring what's causing pain and tension. Or if you have the tools, you can help them release that pain and tension.
Jim Masterson has changed the way people think about equine bodywork. Instead of using pressure or trying to fix the horse, his approach uses a light touch and follows the horse's responses, allowing them to release tension on their own. This conversation gets into something every rider faces. When a horse feels off, where is it coming from? And what can you do about it? Jim explains how discomfort can show up as behavior, how it moves through the body, and why areas like the pole can affect everything else, while helping you start to see what your horse has been showing you all along.
Dear Horse World, it's Jim Masterson.
So before we pressed record, I asked you, I said, how many people have gone through the program? Like, how many people have you taught? And you said 10,000 people have.
Well, 10,000 people have gone through our classes, either the weekend course or the 5-day advanced course, and then on to, if you want to get certified, we have a fieldwork program and then a certification course, which takes, about a year. And so I think it's maybe 650 people, certified people we have now around the world, practicing this. But we've had over 10,000 people go through all of our courses. The weekend, we have 2 different weekend courses. And we have a 3-day course for equine assisted therapy people, because people are using the Bladder, Meridian, and equine assisted therapies, and the advanced 5 days. So over 10,000 people have gone through our program.
That's amazing.
I mean, gone through some of our classes.
So I would love to hear how this all began, because so we're fast track, we're 2025, and you have 10,000 students of some level who have
learned,
reached out and said
yeah,
that they want to learn from the Masterson Method and from you and from your program. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the birth of this.
So I was born at a very early age, and we were so poor I didn't have a stitch of clothing.
Oh gosh!
But you can edit that part out if you want. Anyways,
no, because it's a perfect tell of your
Okay,
sense of humor.
So when I was a kid, we lived in Southern California, and we were in at the time we were living in Topanga Canyon, which is a nice rural.
Oh, beautiful
up there.
Oh,
and my dad was a pilot, so we moved around a lot. But but anyways, we had this big old Pinto horse, and I think after between the wars, Second World War and Korea War. I'm getting a little deep here, but anyways, my dad worked on a ranch, and he always wanted to be a cowboy, so we had a horse, Duque was his name. And so, I remember riding on the front of Duque with my big brother in the saddle and just riding in the front when I was 5. So, that was a nice, I guess the start, the first time that I experienced being around a horse. And then later when I was 10, I had a pony, a Welsh pony. Mm-hmm. And then we started traveling, following my dad around, because he started flying overseas, and so we'd move around a lot. And so I was
that's like an army kid life.
Kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm. And but then and then we lived in Wyoming for a while, and there were people boarding horses on our place, but so on and off, but never professionally, just because once you like horses, and every time you can be around them, you're around them. But then in 1997, I ended up in Iowa, earlier than that, but I met my wife there. I was working on a horse farm just on the ground, but I met her there. But in 1997, I was kind of between jobs and was just kind of deciding what do I want to do next. And there was a local show barn in Fairfield, Iowa, and they had a trainer, and the trainer needed a groom to haul horses to the shows and take care of them at the shows. And so Conley said, "Why don't you go to work for Val as a groom?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And so I did. And when we would go to shows, I would notice when therapists, equine massage therapists or myofascial therapists or chiropractors were working on the horses, these subtle little changes in their behavior. And the yawning was a big part of it. And so that got me interested in it. And the big thing that got me interested was and I've told this story 100 times, but I'll repeat it for your listeners. But there was an old horse chiropractor who was from New Zealand who had been adjusting horses for 40 years. And he'd learned from another old guy in New Zealand who'd been adjusting for 40 years. And he was really, really good. Like, he got really good results. But he used very forceful long lever techniques. But he really knew how to read the horse. And I was fascinated by that. So whenever he was around, I would drive him around to the different barns and hold the lead rope for him and just pay attention. But one of the things that got me was that when he would set the horse up for an adjustment, he'd make this huge adjustment. Oops, sorry. And then he'd step back to see what the horse had to say, which was new to me, and he'd wait, and the horse might stand there and blink a few times and drop its head. And then if it would, usually it would start yawning, or often it would start yawning repeatedly. And that was an indication to him that he got a good adjustment. So I wanted to do what he was doing.
And you had never seen that before?
No.
Someone say, let's step back and let's just see what the horse has to say.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do what he was doing, but he didn't train people, and I wasn't going to go around wrenching horses' necks and things. But there was another thing that put it together for me. We were at a horse show in Estes Park up here. It's the spring show, and probably 1999 maybe, or 2000. And Val, our trainer, hired a gal to come in and massage the horses, and her partner massaged the riders. So it was kind of cool. But this gal would run her fingers down the bladder meridian to relax the horse and connect with the horse before she started working on it. And as she was doing this, I noticed every once in a while there would be a definite blink. The horse would blink, like clearly he was feeling something.
Like a different blink than just
it was
traditional one.
Yeah, they blink all the time, but it was like clear, like that. And so I was a little bit intrigued by that. So she showed me how to do the bladder meridian on the horse. And then when I did it, I would very lightly run my fingers down. And if I got a blink like that, I would stop and wait there and do nothing. Or if I wasn't sure the horse was blinking because of me or something else, I would go over it and I get a blink at the exact same spot. So there was a correlation between what I'm doing and the horse is doing. It means something, a little pattern there. So I wasn't trained to massage. I didn't want to massage. And so I would just wait there and do nothing and just hold my hand there lightly. And the horse would start to maybe blink a couple more times and drop its head. And then after a minute or less, or maybe more, the horse would drop its head and start licking and chewing. But at one point, the horse started yawning repeatedly. So, wow, there's a connection here. That yawning means something. It means the horse is releasing some tension. And you could see the horse is releasing tension. So that connection got me going on experimenting with it and doing, and then I wanted to start adding movement to it, because this chiropractor would get a big giant movement, say when he's doing the neck. And so I don't know why, I just started asking for a gentle movement, in the say the pole and atlas. I didn't know that the pole and atlas was, or the atlas, but just ask for gentle movement, and the horse would start yawning like crazy, and then I go down the neck and do some more. So I started to just add movement. And one thing I learned from this old guy, the importance of the pole and atlas junction, and the neck shoulder withers junction, and the sacroiliac hind lumbosacral junction. I would ask him questions and he would answer them, but he wasn't going to train me.
Yeah.
And so just a few key things that he would say that kind of, wow, these were really kind of little gems. And so I started putting together this method of bodywork, because I wanted to work on the show horses, and it was about performance, and so I started doing it, and it worked, and then I realized owners, when I would, I eventually hooked up with a guy, Bill Stanton. He was Dr. Steele's vet tech for 20 years. Dr. Steele had a big practice on the East Coast, and Bill wanted to do body work too, and he he wanted to do chiropractic. But Dr. Steele didn't want him doing chiropractic because he wasn't trained. So Bill, started doing bodywork similar to mine because he was inspired by this same guy. And Bill left Dr. Steele's practice, and he thought he was wondering, am I going to make it, on my own? But he took the leap. And at the same time, I was trying to build my business up, one horse at a time. And we had a mutual friend. Bill was overwhelmed with clients because for 20 years, he had all these clients, and he needed help, but he didn't. It's kind of a lot of competition in the bodywork field when in that arena, and but a mutual friend of ours, a farrier of each of ours, he said, Bill, why don't you hire Jim? He's a nice guy. He won't take your clients. He just wants to work on horses. And so Bill hired me, and so I went from working on like 8 or 10 horses a week to 10 a day,
Wow.
with him. So, 6 days, average 6 days a week, we could work on 50 or 60 horses each through the season, 2.5 to 3 months done in Wellington. And so that was a big break for me. But, and train, a lot of it was trainers. Here's a list, work on all the horses, and others were owners that wanted us working on the horses. But I realized a lot of the owners wanted to start, they wanted to learn it because it was so interactive with the horse. Especially when I was out of, between shows working on, normal people's horses, and they wanted to learn. So I started, doing a 1-day clinic and then a 2-day clinic, between shows. And when I was home, I would try to build my business by, there are a lot of Amish around us, and I got some Amish clients that had a lot of horses. And, but anyways, I started teaching it, and I knew people wanted to learn it. And I wanted to share it with them because, their horses could use it, and they could learn how to do this work on their own horses. And that's how I got started. And it grew from there. I ended up, some people wanted, we wanted more. So I did a 5-day advanced course. And then other massage therapists wanted to learn these techniques. And so then they asked if do you have a certification? And I okay, well, we'll make a certification program.
Yeah.
And it was kind of rudimentary, but then over the years, it just got more and more sophisticated. And
So how many horses do you think you've put lay hands on?
Well, I tried to kind of make an estimate. So during the years I was working with Bill on our jumpers during the season in Wellington, it was probably 400 or 500 horses during that 3-month period. Wellington, and then we would go up to Tampa, and then he got busier and busier. So I would do his clients in Tampa and Atlanta, and then go home and then come back to Lexington because he wanted to do the shows on the East Coast. So I think just in Wellington alone, it was probably 400 or 500 horses during that 3 months. And then probably during the rest of the year, another 300 horses or so. So I guess maybe 700 a year for 9 years.
That's a lot of horses.
That was just that. And then, it's a lot of horses. And it's a huge education. It was a huge, just working on so many horses and clearly seeing, what needed working on and what the results were. And when you're working on show horses or working horses that are actually using their bodies like athletes, things are really clear, where they're sore, where they're tight when you release it, and they'll tell you really clearly. But then when you get out working on, normal, I'm going to say normal people's horses, but often that it's not
horses that have more of a sedentary or less active life.
Yeah. So like it isn't as clear. Like they're stiffer in general. They may have had these issues for years and years and years, and so it takes a little longer to get something to let go, like actual moving again. But the working on the show horses is a huge education. Just mainly from the horse. You're working on the horse, and the horse is telling you where things are, and then it's moving again, and then the rider says, he's moving much better here, or we're still feeling something. So, but then working on everyday horses was another like whole new level of really getting in there, getting the horse to let go on something that's been stuck for years and years and years.
Okay, Jim, this has got nothing to do with horses, but I really want you
maybe indirectly.
Yeah. But I really want you to include this because this is a fascinating part of your origin story. And it has to do with baby baboon monkeys. And that's that's all I'm going to give.
Okay. So, I might have left a little bit out. Okay. So my dad was a pilot, and he was a contract pilot. And so he would get jobs all over the world, flying cargo planes, most of the time. And so we followed him. Our family went around with him where we could. But when I was 16, we moved to the Congo, and northern Congo. And we were there for 2 years. And so there was no school. Me and my little brothers and little sister didn't go to school, but we spent a lot of time flying around with him in these cargo planes, or just my parents would let me and my two little brothers just hop on a truck and drive through the jungle to another town. They didn't worry about things. They were very open-minded about stuff. But that gave, that when I liked animals. So once the locals knew that I liked animals, like I think there were Europeans living in this town, Kisangani. They were mostly Greeks and Belgians, but some of them would have a pet chimpanzee sometimes. So we got a pet chimpanzee, a little 2-year-old. And then once the locals knew that I liked animals, they would start bringing me animals out in from the jungle. And I told you a pangolin. They brought a pangolin. I'd never seen one before. I kept it for a while and then just let it go. But I ended up with. We ended up with Chi-Chi, the chimp. She lived in the house with my mom, But I had 2 small baboons, Pokey and Teef, I named them. But I got the first baboon flying around with my dad. He was flying Congolese soldiers around the country. And they would have I saw one with this little baboon. And I asked him if he'd sell it to me, and he did. So I got first, and then I got another one. But anyways, the ones we ended up with were Chi-Chi, the chimp, and I had the 2 little baboons. And I ended up with an albino monkey, a full-grown monkey. It's a gray monkey, but it had white skin, pink skin, white hair, and blue eyes. So it was really neat. It was almost human in its face, My mom would kid that he looked like Sterling Hayden, the actor. But anyways, the thing is, the baboons are very social. They're all social, but the baboons are very social. And I was really interested in their behaviors, social behaviors. Like, for example, they'll groom each other, and one will do the grooming, and they'll eat a little bug, and they lip their lips while they're grooming. But also another behavior they have is they have white eyelids, and when they show their eyelids, it's kind of an aggressive thing, right? And if they show their teeth, like they'll go, and then they'll show their teeth, and that's the first sign before
they do something aggressive.
So I would play these little games, like I'd be grooming like Pokey on my lap, and they go, I'm not really eating the bugs, but
pretending.
Yeah. And Pokey's like, and then I would show him my eyelids. I go, and he'd turn to me and he'd grab my shirt and shake my shirt, and then I go back up, and he'd go, okay. So it's kind of fun, to do those and to see the little human behaviors, they do. Like they want to put their arm around you, like my Poncho, my monkey, the white one, he'd put his arm on my shoulder, and they want to they mouth you. It's not like kissing, but they, humans, they do stuff that humans do. But anyway, so that kind of, might have had something to do with paying close attention to the horse's
behavioral
subtle
cues.
changes in behavior. So, I kind of left out that part of the story. But I don't know how much more you want.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because that's such a rich interspecies experience to have at such an impressionable age. I think I would say from the outside, just looking at the big picture, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a perfect segue into our No Stupid Questions.
Okay.
All these questions that our community has for you, Jim.
Well, yeah, it's funny because at the clinic, with Mark and Steve, Mark and I were doing questions and answers, and it struck me that a bad question is never a good question is never a bad color. From his a good horse is never a bad color. A good question is never a bad color.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's
you can use that if you want.
I will. I will. I think that's that was the birth of this concept. Was that I think a lot of people in the horse world have lots of questions, and sometimes they don't feel comfortable to ask them publicly or in a public setting or in a social setting. And so we wanted to create an environment in which people felt really safe to ask all sorts of questions, the ones that they may even think are stupid. But the whole concept is that there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Well, you don't have their names down there, right?
No,
so
I don't.
They're anonymous.
We don't include them. Yeah. But I think it's really powerful, the origin story of Masterson Method, because it's literally birthed from working with thousands of horses.
Yeah. And watching the horse, it's guided by what the horse is saying to you with its changes in body language and use. you have to recognize that and trust that what that they're saying is what they're saying, and then just start learning some techniques and go from there,
Yeah.
from the simplest to the, to the more advanced ones.
Okay, first question is, what are the key areas of tension in a horse's body that owners should be aware of?
Okay, yeah, when I was following this old guy around, that I don't like to call him an old guy. He was, what is that? So I must have been like 45 and he was 60, and I'm a lot older than he was at the time. But, anyways,
But those old
I asked him.
horsemen, there's something really special about them.
Mhm.
They've had their hands on so many horses.
And I don't think he was trained, at a school or anything. He learned from this other old guy. So it's a lot of knowledge and experience in that. And but I asked him that, and he said the key junctions are the pole, atlas, and the neck shoulder withers, and the sacroiliac. And what's the most important? And it's the pole and atlas junction. So
He said the most important is the pole atlas junction.
and it is. So yeah, anything going on in the body shows up as tension in the pole and atlas.
Wow.
And conversely, say the horse hits its head or it has dental issues and whatever, and that directly creates tension in the pole, affects movement in the rest of the body. So when you're working on the pole and atlas.
Whoa, wait, say that again, Jim. Because you worked on my horses yesterday. Both my horses have had tension present in the pole atlas area. Both have had, well, my mare especially with dental, like lack of dental in the past and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that. So say that again.
So tension in the pole and atlas in this junction here affects the rest of the body. So if your horse, say she's from dental issues or hitting their head, or direct things that can cause tension in the pole, or sore front feet, goes right up into the pole and atlas on the same side. So more sore the foot, the more tension in the pole. So any tension up in here affects the rest of the body.
Wow.
So the hind end, the sacroiliac, everything, and the whole movement in the horse. Sometimes you release the tension in the pole and everything starts to look, you're taking off a huge layer of tension. And conversely, anything going on in the body creates tension in the pole and atlas too. So if the horse has tension in the hind end, in the sacroiliac, or in the lumbosacral, or hocks, or whatever, it's going to show up as tension in the pole. Tension and soreness in the back, tension in the pole. For example, sore back, you put on the saddle, they're going away from the pain of the saddle, and it shows up right in the top here. So, you just notice after working on lots of horses, well, this horse has a really sore back, and he's, really sore, and they're really, really tight and sensitive right on top behind the pole, So you start to see these connections.
Okay, so for everyone who's listening or watching and are like, okay, I know what the pole is, but I don't know what the atlas is. Can you explain what the atlas is?
The atlas is the first vertebra of the neck. So we have the skull, right? And then you have the atlas. And then you have the other 6 vertebrae of the neck. And I mean, that's helpful for owners to know, but sometimes, you have a horse, maybe on a practical level, you have a horse that's very head shy. You put your hand up there and or you go to put the halter and the bridle on, and it's not a learned behavior. And especially if you can't train them not to do it, right? Then it's not a learned behavior. It's tension in the pole and discomfort in the pole and atlas. So that's the first thing. It's not a learned behavior, especially if you can't easily train your horse not to do that, then it's pain and tension. So once you understand that, then you don't blame your horse for doing that. He's being a jerk, right?
Yeah.
So that's helpful. And then the next question might be, well, why does he have that? So then you can start exploring what's causing pain and tension in the pole and atlas. Or if you have the tools, you can help them release that pain and tension. And, on whatever level you can do it. And then, so you can help your horse that way once you know that it's pain and tension. So that's beneficial, right, to an owner?
Extremely. I mean, I didn't know that. And now I was sharing a little bit with you about how my gelding had transformative work done with Yannick Vlugin. And one of the main causes of him and all of the things, the misdiagnosis of for EPM, we thought he was mildly neurological. All these things that all started with the occipital bone being out, the hyoid being out, and he had hit his head because he's a big boy, and he had trailer anxiety. He had hit his head on umpteen trailers. And a few when he was with me when I first got him, and then a bunch before he got me. Well, he came to me. So I think there's a lot of us who don't understand that connection.
Yeah, we don't make that connection. Yeah, we think a lot of things the horses do is because they're being bad or not or whatever.
And he has, and since then, obviously, he's not as much. But when I got him, he was very head shy, very like, oh, I don't know, what are you asking? And very like, and he's a big guy, so you'd have to really work with him to build that moment of presence to help him feel comfortable, to really allow him to put a halter on, whatever. And I never drew those connections.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
So we know, and then we do better.
Yeah, then
because we know better.
Yeah, now we know enough to start knowing something else.
Yeah.
Well, he felt pretty good yesterday. For a horse that's come through that with his pole, and there's just a little residual stuff on the right side. So it's like peeling layers off, and so the work that Yannick Lugan did was helpful. Yeah, on the pole and the hind end, because you said he was really locked up behind.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing an entire podcast on that, because his case study alone goes to show that something can be present, and that's why I love that we're talking about bodywork, because I think I only would have been able to feel confident to really advocate for him because I've done so much bodywork with both my horses. Because you learn so much about the horse that's with you when you, like, I would imagine some of those cases of which you were working with horses, that were in competition form, like competition environments, you probably knew that horse better physically than the trainer or the owner.
Yeah. Well,
because
the trainer can feel what's going on, but sometimes the horse is so good at covering stuff up, they're so good at covering up discomfort because, in the wild, they're programmed to just block it out, because if they start showing any sign of lameness at all, they become a target. They go to the top of the menu.
Yeah, top of the food chain, not bottom of the food chain.
And so they're so good at covering it up. So often by the time you're feeling it, the rider is feeling it, it's there. It's nice if you can catch it before that. If you can, like you said, if you're doing body work on a horse on a regular basis, you start to notice when things show up before they turn into lameness.
Well, and I think that's also a really good prompt for everyone who's listening or watching, that if your horse looks okay, doesn't necessarily mean they are okay. And that's not to say that
they're a mess.
No.
And it's just to be aware that there could be something there, especially if something starts showing up, in their movement or behavior or whatever, that just to realize that something physical might be showing up.
Yeah, I've come to learn that horses are like master deflectors in that they're not necessarily always interested in having the conversation that needs to be had about maybe a tension or a pain or an injury that is present in their body. They're like, no, it's fine. I'm good. I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah. So the way I look at that is like you go to work on a horse, and sometimes you're just doing the bladder meridian, barely touching and going down, and you get to the hind end and the horse just moves his rump away, and he keeps moving. Every time you get there, he moves away. And so, you have to ask him to stand, maybe tie him. And then if you tie him, loosely at the head, then you can go back and forth with him as he's moving away. And somebody might say, well, he doesn't like that. But it's kind of like a little kid that doesn't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I know you don't want to go to school, but you're going to feel better once you go to school. So let's just do it. And so that's kind of how I look at it with a horse. It's going to be okay. It's a little uncomfortable right now, but
do the hard thing for our horses in the moment so that their future can look better.
Yeah.
I think that's a really...
Oh, yeah. They're going to feel better afterwards. So...
How does tension in one part of the horse's body affect other areas?
Well, I guess there's one would be compensation. So they have a sore hock. They're gonna be compensating, shifting weight to the other hind leg, and they're going to be shifting weight to the diagonal on the front. So compensation, they're going to get sore in the lower back because they're compensating for pain every time they take a step and it hurts. They've got to tighten up and adjust the load somewhere else. So compensation's a big one. But there's other, like I call them interconnections in the body that I actually don't know, but the horse, I actually don't know what they are. But the horse will say, I'm feeling something here. Like I was telling you yesterday, in this area, in the lower neck and the withers and some down into the sternum, that area has a connection probably through some ventral fascia up into the groin and the deeper muscles in the hind end, because you'll be working in that area. And I think G was showing that, right?
Yeah.
Or was it Lady?
Lady was showing tension in that the right scapula, in that tension. And you said that whole right side, the front side of her scapula and in her wither was tighter on the right side. And then she was activated on the left hind.
Yeah. So you're working in one area, and then the horse will feel it in the hind end, in the groin. They'll stomp their foot.
Yeah.
Every time you put your hand there, they stomp their foot. There's a correlation between what you're doing and they're doing. So it means something. Or sometimes they'll kind of kick up into their belly. So they're feeling something up in there. And so, I don't know what that is. I'm just guessing. I just learn my anatomy as I go along, and I try not to get in my head too much about it and just follow what the horse is saying. But there's a connection here up into the groin and deeper up in there too, I think.
And what you said about pole and atlas being connected to tension in the rest of the body, and the tension in the rest of the body also referring to the pole and atlas, I think that connection is really powerful for everyone to walk away from this. But if there's like one thing I think that everyone walks away from this podcast with, is that the pole and the atlas is much more important than I think most of us realize.
Yeah. When you're working up here in the pole and atlas, whether you're doing just light work like the bladder meridian or search, response, stay, release, or you're actually asking for movement there, you'll do a little, when they're really tight, you'll do a tiny little bit, and you'll step back and see what they have to say, and they might lick and chew or start yawning, but then often you'll see them relax one leg behind and then relax the other leg behind and then relax the other leg behind. And then so that something's let go back there, and they're trying to get comfortable,
And I think it's really also, we're going to include in the show notes in this podcast, because you have actually released the Bladder Meridian for free on YouTube, right? People can watch it and learn how to do it.
They can go on YouTube, and they can go on our website. There's a 17-minute video on not just looking for a blink and waiting for a yawn or lick and chew, but paying attention to the whole horse, like when they start to let go behind and when they feel something in the groin, or, just paying attention to the whole body.
Yeah, I think it's really important to mention that, because the Masterson Method, like our platform, NF Plus, you guys have released a lot of free material, a lot of resources for people to get access to. And so it's important that everyone who's listening right now, you guys can literally go on YouTube, or you can go on mastersonmethod.com, and we'll include those links in the show notes, and you can literally learn how to do the Bladder Meridian.
Yeah, I'll find the link directly to that video for you. And
Perfect.
Because my philosophy is that you just get it out there and let people try it. And then if they want to learn more, they'll buy the book and the DVD, and if they want to learn more, they'll come into a weekend. So if they want, if it's for them, but I don't like the idea of selling people something just to sell it to them. If it's going to work for them, then it's a big step, sometimes just to buy a book, $30 some book, you don't know if you like it or not or whatever. But if you have some access to the YouTube videos and you try some things, and then you learn more, want to come learn more.
Before I ask you the next question, I actually think there's something really important that you said this weekend that really stood out to me, that I've come to now really appreciate. The more and more masters and the more really respected horsemen and horsewomen that I talk to, you said that because you were a groom, that your cup wasn't. And I love this Avatar example in the movie. People will know that they talk about how to teach sky people about the way of the Na'vi people, right? And I don't know if anyone's watched the movie, they'll know the reference. And the matriarch of the tribes talks about how the cups are too full. It's hard to fill a cup that is already full.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's a beautiful analogy.
It is for me too, right now, because if I've learned what I've learned, and it's like, somebody say, oh, you should go study this. Well, I don't have any room up there to study anymore, because I'm using what I'm using. Yeah.
And I think that was a really powerful mention, and I wanted to highlight it in this episode, was that you said, because I was a groom and I hadn't been trained in all these different other modalities, there wasn't any noise in my mind. So I just learned from the horse. Yeah. And I used all the feedback from thousands of horses that I worked on to establish this method, which I think is a really important, because we do get very caught up with certifications and training and, okay, what are your credentials? And
Yeah.
and I think that there's a lot of validity in that, and that's not to be discredited.
Yeah.
It's a very important process. And
Mm-hmm.
for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when we had Dr. John Langlois in the studio, who's a TCVM, he talked about how Chinese medicine has been practicing on horses for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And they had these, and now science is just catching up to the meridians that exist on the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So sometimes we actually know more than we realize. And science sometimes has to catch up to what, you know, this old New Zealand chiropractor, he's clearly, I mean, the what is it? The proof was in the pudding.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a really important mention that Masterson Method is birthed from this grassroots working with horses. Yeah. You kind of co-created Masterson Method with horses, which is powerful.
Yeah. Well, I kind of joke that, you know, like say, for example, when I first got the blink and I just waited there because I wasn't trained to do anything else. Right. So I was uneducated, which was helpful. And I had the patience to wait and see what was going to happen because I'm naturally lazy. So if you're lazy and uneducated, there's hope for you still. But, you know, it's also learning from other people, like, you know, from the chiropractor. You know, I broke down some of the techniques he was using into relaxed movement rather than doing an adjustment. And I think a lady that was a human chiropractor, but she was working on horses and she did craniosacral. She was showing me a technique with the tail, where it's a craniosacral technique, where you gently traction the tail and rest your hand on the sacrum, and you feel for that, you know, that rhythm, that craniosacral pulse. Well, I'm not trained to do that, and I don't know that it might take me a while to train me to do that. But I realized when I gently put my hand under the horse's tail and tractioned it, I got a blink. So, okay, I'm going to just stay with the blink and the horse's tail. And I could tell the horse was feeling something because I just gently brought his tail out and he felt something. And so I stayed there. And after 2 or 3 minutes, the horse dropped its head and started yawning. You know, when that happened, so I took that craniosacral technique, but I just changed it into following the feedback of the horse, the visual feedback, not the, you know, palpable or the, and it was kind of cool because it was so easy and it was so clear that the horse that had tension in the sacrum, that he was feeling something. It was clear that he was blocking out the tension in his sacrum until I asked for such a light movement that I brought his attention to it. If I'd have pulled on it, he would have just blocked it out, but just barely finding it. Okay, he feels it. Keep his attention on it until, and then you can see, you know, the horse is just feeling something, you know, it's blinking, it's kind of gone inward. And then all of a sudden he drops his head and either licks and chews or yawns, or maybe behind he just started shifting weight from leg to leg. So, you know, I learned from other people. And as I learned, I went along and learned more anatomy where I thought it was relevant to what I was working on and not beyond that, because I'm not interested in the intellectual part of it, you know. I'm interested in following the horse and helping him release tension. So, you know, it's there, but the anatomy is important and understanding the biomechanics. But now you have another tool, feedback from the horse, that's equally as important. And don't get caught up in well, you can if you want. You can learn every little thing about the anatomy if you want. But it's important to me just not to let that get in the way of what you're following the horse. Yeah, people that already have studied anatomy and got a really solid knowledge of that, and biomechanics, I mean, that's valuable when you learn this because you're adding feedback to the horse. But for me, it's going to be most effective if you don't let that overwhelm that other part.
If you were to sum up Masterson Method, distill it down to its essence. It's a modality in which it allows you to identify and release tension with in sort of like cooperation with the horse, right? And a huge part of that is being able to observe it, identify it, and that requires a tremendous amount of presence. You have to be able to observe your horse in real time, right?
No.
Why is tension something that we want to release from our horses' bodies?
Because it's the same as with humans. You know, we can build up well, I call it accumulating tension, and the horse accumulates tension in the body through work. Overwork is a big one, drilling the horse over and over again. Just because the horse is willing to continue doing it doesn't mean that it isn't building up to a point where it's creating either problems now or down the road in the horse. I guess, for me, it started out to improve performance, but it was clear that it was making the horse feel better at the same time. And it's really, what's really clear was the horse would connect with you because it learns you're paying attention to it. Not only, say you're going down, you get a blink, you wait there until the horse releases tension. So it's really helpful to be able to read what the horse is telling you, but it's super helpful. I mean, it's exponential when the horse gets that you're paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And then the horse doesn't panic when you find something, or it starts to trust you. Even if it gets uncomfortable and it releases, then the horse trusts you. So there's that connection there. And, we just spent the weekend with Dr. Peters, and we understand all of the neurochemical activity that's going on in the brain, that oxytocin, when the horse comes right up to you after it's really goes away from you so it can process and all this stuff and deal with it. And then it comes back over to you.
Yeah.
That's the oxytocin.
A bonding chemical.
Bonding chemical. Yeah. And so it's pretty cool. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, I think it does. And I think what's fascinating is that, so in this journey of this podcast, using the sort of numerous conversations and numerous perspectives, we've tried to distill down the definition of some of the key things that we're all trying to achieve, right? So the universal pursuit of every horseman or horsewoman is like feel, for example, is really crucial. And I think through multiple conversations and talking to so many different experts, we've basically been able to distill down the definition of feel is being able to observe and respond to the horse in real time, moment to moment, in the saddle. And every time I then describe that or outline that definition, people go, yeah, that's basically feel, right? But feel, when people say, what is feel? Well, it's a hard thing to describe, right? And
well, you're right. That kind of, it's how you respond physically, and any kind of physical contact with the horse, or even, just being nearby. But then let's limit it to any physical contact. The feel is how you're responding to what the horse is doing, or vice versa, right?
Yes.
So, and the feel can be on a level of, let's see, I want my horse to move, so I smack it, or the horse pulls and you pull back and it's dragging you around. To you can refine it down to a really refined level, like you feel the horse start to feel it early when the horse starts to pull, and you gently say, no, yes, no, yes, and then the horse responds to the yes. They don't, or you can be pulling, So, but I guess the definition is how you respond to what the horse is doing, and how the other part for me would be how do you refine that down to the level of the horse's understanding of feel, because their understanding of feel is so subtle.
Exactly, the micro movements. And I realize in this conversation that I think we can now distill down to its essence, when we all say we want a connection. When we see a horse and a rider and we say, wow, they have a really tangible, observable connection, right? So what is connection? And I would argue that connection is when a horse identifies, has a conscious, and Dr. Steve Peters will be able to actually say that there's neuroscience to back that horses can actually observe that there's a chemical response when this happens. But that when horses can identify that you, said human, can understand the cues that they're giving off, that is actually the inception or the birth or the conception of connection between horse and human.
Yeah.
Is when, and Bodywork.
When the horse identifies it, or when you identify it.
Yeah. But that moment where the horse goes, oh, you're picking up what I'm putting down. That my cue, that my blink, that my swish of my tail, that my slight micro movement from left hind to right hind, you notice those things.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Now we're in connected conversation.
Yeah.
That is why Bodywork is so important.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm a body worker, so I'm going to say this, but for me, the easiest and not the quickest, everything has to be done quickly. The easiest and quickest way to connect with your horse is through this type of body work or any type of body work where you're responding to what your horse is palpably saying, and the horse gets that. It's not a learning thing for the horse. It's like, wow, it just happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're riding, well, even if you're a good rider and you're using the right principles, the horse will pick it up right away. A lot of times as riders, we're missing that the horse got what we were asking.
Yes.
We missed that the horse got it. And so we keep asking.
Because we're not present.
Yeah. And we don't understand that the horse, how subtle and how the horse's brain and nervous system works. So we'll miss it. And so we keep asking, and then the horse thinks, well, that wasn't what he wanted. I'm going to do something else. And then we get angry at the horse. So that feel, you just have to be like, like you said, and just be aware that there is a really fine level of field that the horse is operating on. Just start being aware of it.
It's kind of like, I've used this reference a couple times in the podcast. It's like Karate Kid, is when he's doing wax on, wax off. Yeah. And the kid's like, what does this have to do with karate? And it's like, it has everything to do with karate. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, body work to me is, I've come to really understand it, is that actually the subtle cues that I can then start to pick up on with my horses. Yeah. And I can understand their body inside out, then completely, totally translates to riding, like to be time in the saddle. And that feel and being able to identify and then of course we talk about depositing in the relationship bank. So it's one of the few things that we can have, that we can be in relationship with our horses, and that you are giving and not taking. It's like one of the few things that we do with our horses that's all give and no take. Is that, do you think that's true?
That we're giving and the horses and no take.
We're body work. That if we are doing body work with our horses, that it's all give and not taking from our horses.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important.
Yeah. And the bladder meridian, it's so simple and so easy. And, I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten from people that have seen it on YouTube and done it. And they email, wow, I just had my idea that my horse had so much going on in his body. And then when he let it go, it's like a new horse,
How did you? So tell me about the inception or the conception of the bladder meridian. How did that come?
Well, that was the gal in Estes Park that was massaging our horses, and she used the bladder meridian. I don't know traditional Chinese medicine. All I know is that bladder meridian worked, and it was, but it's one of all the other meridians are associated with it. I've been told. So it's an important meridian. It runs through the 3 key junctions we work on: pole atlas, neck, shoulder, withers, sacroiliac. It's easy to reach. It's not all up under the horse somewhere, and it's easy to reach. So it's just a really good way to start. And you can do this anywhere on the horse's body. Search lightly for responses and wait anywhere. And there are certain points, over the years that I found that are good places to check, and start. On the hind end points, there's 6 points that we use. Sets of points, and then there's another one. It's right behind the scapula on the trunk, like right back here on us, and it's kind of a lump. It's where different muscles overlap, and it's kind of a where would it be? Right behind your leg, right behind your knee. There's a part of the horse. There's an area where there's a buildup of muscle in, and I found searching on that area gets big responses and big releases.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, anyways, my point is you can do this anywhere on the horse. It's not just the bladder meridian. Okay. And if you know traditional Chinese medicine, then you might use the bladder meridian to identify what's going on with the horse. Maybe you're getting a response on a meridian that has to do with a certain organ, and so you can add that knowledge in.
Yeah.
But the feedback getting feedback from the horse, this type of feedback is probably going to it can make a lot of modalities more effective, I think.
I agree. How can regular bodywork benefit a horse's long-term health and performance?
Oh, well, performance, long-term performance, just like a human athlete, you get tighter and tighter and tighter. And if you don't release that every once in a while, then you're going to end up with problems, foot and leg injuries when you keep the body supple and keep, shock absorption, the ability to absorb shock in the lower legs and the feet and legs. That's going to be helpful. Tension in the horse's body builds up. It doesn't build up evenly. It's like humans. One side gets tighter than the other. And then one side gets tighter than the other, and then it torques like the pole in Atlas. And the occiput, with
What G had
yeah,
gone.
is the back of the skull. So the occiput and Atlas are that atlanto-occipital joint, if you like long words. The Atlas gets torqued. I call it torqued. So the uneven tension torques it. And so a chiropractor might call that subluxated or out of alignment. But for me, it's torquing the joint. And then when that happens, everything around it tightens up. Yeah. So like, if you have anybody that's had sacroiliac problems or lower back problems will understand that, when things get torqued, especially the sacroiliac, it just, all the nerves and the hind end tighten up, and then everything gets tight. So you have, if you occasionally, as it builds up, if you release it, you're going to keep your horse more supple and limber, and it's going to help reduce, and this isn't just with the Masterson Method, anything that does this will help reduce impact in the feet and the suspensory ligaments in the joints. So,
well, and they're often considered, have you found this in your work as well, that the suspensories and a lot of those joints that we end up injecting as the horse becomes older is in fact the sort of at the end of a very long chain of connection, and they end up being the last point of compensation.
Maybe, yeah. Everything else is tightening up, and so they're not even retracted. But it happens young show horses are injected in a lot of them regularly in the joints. I'm all for keeping them comfortable, and I've gotten joints injected myself, so I know how good it feels when you do it. But to use that as the tool, as the only thing, you shouldn't just wait for the horse to have a problem and then inject it. You should be proactive and keep the horse's body from becoming so tight that it can't really, protect those joints and structures.
What are some subtle signs that a horse is experiencing discomfort or tension?
That's a big question. That's kind of the premise of the clinics that Mark and I do together. Mark Rashid and I, is that Mark, he has a really good eye for seeing where, when somebody brings a horse into him for a lesson, seeing where the horse might be not moving in its body. There might be something that's not symmetrical or not moving, and he can see that the horse is having trouble. And the horse is having trouble often doing what the rider's asking it to do, upward transitions, whatever. Going down hills, it tends to traverse down a hill or rush down a hill. And so he wouldn't give the rider a lesson until the rider had that physical problem taken care of. Whereas a lot of trainers would just say, "Oh, we can handle it. We can teach him to do that. We'll get him to get the right canter lead. We'll just get him to do it, even though the left one's fine." But why is he not getting the right canter lead? It's because something's going on. It's not
going on.
Yeah, like I say, they don't get together the night before out in the paddock and say, "Hey, let's all not pick up the right canter lead today." So so there's a sign, right? And so anyways, so we do these clinics together. So we watch the horse and rider come in. We ask them what they're working on. We watch the horse move, and Mark and I just share our thoughts out loud, what we're thinking. We're not picking on the horse, criticizing. We're not saying, "Oh, that's the problem." We're just we're gathering information, and then but the auditors get the best deal, because the 6 horses are coming in over the course of 3 days, and they're getting everything we're seeing. And then I'll work on the horses, and they'll come back the 3rd day, so they're seeing if there's an improvement or not. But back to the question is, what are some signs? If you're riding your horse and they can do something easily one direction and not the other, and you can't easily train them to do it both directions evenly, then there's a physical possibly physiological component to the problem. And another is, if all of a sudden a behavior shows up, they start bucking, but there's probably something going on. Unless you're trying to train them to do something that, and they're just not getting it, and they reach the point where I got to get rid of the rider. But and if that might be the case, but if all of a sudden you're not doing anything different and the horse starts bucking or the behavior changes, that's a sign something might be going on. The best way, and it's free, is to do the bladder meridian on the horse and pay attention to where the horse is telling you that he's feeling something, and then you wait until he releases it or not. And if there's nothing there, good. So it's just a tool. It's not the only tool.
Yeah, but
there could be other stuff going on, and it's so easy to do. And it's going to improve your relationship with your horse when he gets, "Wow, this person's listening to me." And I want to make sure that we're not like horses don't think like we do. They're not like it's like you find where there's tension, they release it, and they get this a neurochemical response that feels good. And part of that is oxytocin, which is the bonding response.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm really excited for Steve to come on the podcast, and he's going to be coming on to explain a lot of the neuroscience behind what takes place. And that's a really important piece. And I love that you, Mark, and Steve all talk about horses don't think like we do. They don't see the world like we do. And it's super important to think that they don't have conscious thought. They're not sitting there going, oh, thanks for seeing me. I feel very seen and heard and gotten.
No, it's not like that. Yeah.
But I do think that there is.
It's a herd thing. Oxytocin is a herd bonding chemical. So that's how the horses operate. They don't think like we do. And I really like the neuro poetry book that Steve did, because he's like, that surprised me, because he's all science. And he says it doesn't mean that something isn't work a certain way, or it's not doing it that way, but if there's no scientific evidence of it, then you can't say that it's working that way, right? So that book is neuropoetry, and I was just surprised, wow, he's kind of blending
the creative world, or his expressive world, with the science world. What makes the Masterson method different from other types of equine bodywork?
Oh, for me, it's the main thing is following the horse. That's the main thing. Oh, wait, there's another part.
Oh, perfect.
You're not using pressure. You're bringing the horse's awareness to what it's feeling in its body by not using pressure and paying it close attention. So it's not just the feedback from the horse. It's the level of feel we were talking about. You can't, if the horse is sore, if the horse has tension and soreness in his back, if it's really sore and you palpate it, he'll react. But he may be sore underneath there, and the vertebra might be like stuck together. But if you put you can find that by going so lightly that the horse can't naturally brace against it, because they survive by blocking it out. So if you go use a level of pressure that the horse can't brace against, as you're going down the back or anywhere on the body, and you're slowly going and you're watching the eye, and the horse blinks. The blink means the horse is feeling something there, but he's not yet bracing against it, because he can't brace against nothing. So if you just keep his attention on it long enough, and this fits in with the neuroscience that Dr. Peters talks about, if you keep his attention on it long enough, in a way he can't brace against it, he goes from that sympathetic, which is protecting it, to this. You bring his awareness to it, and there's a little spike in the sympathetic, and then he releases it, and that goes in the parasympathetic. And the yawns and the licking and chewing, those are all parasympathetic responses. So it's the level of feel that you're using, or level of touch or feel you're using. If you're using too much, the horse, you're missing it. The horse is blocking it out. Same as
too much.
feel.
Like more is not better.
Yeah, less is more is what we say, and sometimes we say more less is even more.
Okay, I think this is a great opportunity actually for you to explain the different levels of touch, because you have them beautifully outlined.
Yeah, so when I started teaching, and I would be doing something, and so one of the students would say, and teaching meaning like a weekend clinic for horse owners, because I want horse owners to learn how to do this on their horses. I'd be doing something, and the question was, how much pressure are you using? So rather than say, well, I'm using 2.5 pounds per square inch, like, who knows what that is, right? I'm going to go get a scale and measure.
I have no idea what that would be.
I would say, well, it's about an egg yolk, it's the amount of pressure it would take to just indent an egg yolk without breaking it. So I wanted to make it something palpable that was understandable. So the first level is air gap, barely touching the hair, and people don't understand that. I mean, I showed you yesterday what egg yolk and air gap. Air gap literally means not touching the skin.
Yeah, just
barely touching the hair, and slowly going at a certain, not too fast so you miss the blink, and not so slow that the horse is just, oh, I'm feeling something, and they're ready to brace against it. Even they can brace against nothing, even. So, anyways. The first level is air gap, and then the next level is egg yolk. The amount of pressure it would take to indent an egg yolk. Not break it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you put an egg yolk on the table here, that would be like that.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
And then the next level I call grape. The amount of pressure to squeeze a grape without breaking it, which is just a little more than egg yolk, but it's more.
Yeah.
And then the next level I call lemon, like squeezing a lemon. So that's even more.
Yeah, and to squeeze a lemon is like you need quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you squeeze a lemon for, like warm lemon water in the morning or
Yeah.
something,
That's a
it's a fair
certain
bit.
amount of pressure. I don't know. You could measure it if you wanted. But then the next one I call hard lime, which is about as hard as you can push.
Yeah.
But the key is you're using level of pressure that's always staying underneath. Whatever level of pressure you're using, it's always staying beneath the horse's bracing response, his ability to brace against it. And so certain techniques, you start with a certain level of pressure, and then you might adjust it depending on the horse. So like bladder meridian, the air gap, you're going down and two things might happen. Say you're going down the horse somewhere, let's say over the withers or down the back, and you get a blink. So you wait there. And the horse might continue to blink, and then maybe nothing's happening. So you're just waiting, and you feel like, well, you just start to get a sense the more you do it of the horse. Now the horse is blocking that out. So you back off a little bit and you get a blink. So he was guarding against that level of non-pressure, but you back off even more and you give him a blink, then he's feeling that again. So you stay at that level. So you'll adjust it depending. And also you might be starting with egg yolk on a technique, and then you get a blink and you're waiting, and then you try doing a less and nothing happens, and you put a little more pressure and the horse blinks. So that means he's feeling something, but he's not yet bracing against it. But he's got to be feeling it for him to heal it. So you don't want me to do my Dr. Phil
impersonation? Do your Dr. Phil.
You got to feel it to heal it. So they got to feel it. What we're doing is we're keeping their awareness on that area. They've been blocking it out to survive. We're bringing their attention to it in a way they can't brace against it, long enough for their nervous system to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And when I first started doing this, I didn't know exactly how that worked, but I could see that I was working with the horse's nervous system, and that there was a part that's blocking out the tension, and there's a part that's releasing it. So that turns out it's parasympathetic and sympathetic. And in the training, Dr. Peters talks about, and Mark both, like Mark trains, he doesn't put so much pressure on the horse that the horse goes like way into the fear thing. He just puts enough to sympathetic arousal for curiosity.
Yes.
He wants the horse. You gotta bring the horse's attention to something that it's not used to having, or it's.
You need that norepinephrine.
Yeah, you have to have a little sympathetic stimulation for the horse to learn. But if you do too much, then they go into this fight or flight.
Yes.
But you just enough so that the horse's awareness is there, and they're curious, and then they figure it out that okay, it's safe, and then they go into the parasympathetic.
Yeah.
So when I heard Dr. Peters talking about the first time, and I'm trying to see how this all fits into Bodywork, then that made sense to me. So you're bringing their awareness to it, and by making them feel it, there's a little sympathetic arousal there, and then often just before the horse releases, he fidgets. He looks around or he wants to walk away. You stay with him, and then they let it go, and then they drop their head and start licking into him, for example. So it kind of fit in with the how the horse's brain works, the nervous system, with the Bodywork.
This is also a perfect opportunity for you to explain to us the concept of intention, because air gap is not like that. You're not working with physical touch. You're working with energy and intention.
Well, I think what's happening is you're bringing the horse's awareness to it. So if this is too much for the horse, sometimes you go up to the pole and you put your fingers up there, and they got so much tension up here that they can't handle that. So you back away until they blink, and then the blink means they're feeling it, but they're not bracing. So you stay at that distance. So you're bringing their awareness to it. Now, everything's energy work, and people that do Reiki will say this is similar to that, but I don't feel what's going on. My intention isn't to make this horse let go. My intention is just to keep his awareness on it long enough for him to his nervous system to let it go. Okay, so I think it's important that, see, if you have an agenda with it, I've just noticed if I have an agenda with the horse picks up on I'm going to try to fix this, or there's a big problem in here, right? I don't know that. All I know is the horse is saying, I feel something there.
Yeah.
So if I just keep his attention on it and let him do the releasing. So energy, I'm sure energy is going on. And some people that come, to do the weekend, they'll feel stuff, they'll feel something in their hand or vibration or heat or something. So I know that there is, but I'm not trained to do that. But I know I can watch the horse's response. So I'm going completely by the horse's response. If you have an agenda or you're anticipating, okay, wait, how come he's not releasing? The horse is going to pick up on it, and it's not, and it's going to block it out.
And when you said that this weekend, I realized that I think that's true of every aspect of our relationship with horses. You know, that when we have an agenda, horses pick up on it, and then they either completely, like, they comply and they want to accommodate, or they feel tension, anxiety. You know, that there is evidence both from a science and from a sort of observational element to show that kind of expectation, that intention does change the dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that having an agenda is bad, you know. But with the body work, with this type of body work, you just have to keep the horse's attention on it and let him figure it out, you know. So, but horses pick up on your intention, and that's why you have to be careful what your intention is, and you have to be clear on what your intention is too. So, for example, and I use this demonstration a lot, you know, when you go to pick up a horse's foot and you don't know the horse, or you even do know the horse, but it's worse if you do know the horse because you've already got some agenda, right? Yeah. But you don't know the horse. So you go to pick up his foot, and you think your intention is, I want the horse to pick up his foot, or I want to be able to pick up his foot. But attached to that is, am I going to have to squeeze the flexor tendon? Am I have to pull on the fetlock? Am I going to have to, or is he going to not do it? So when I go to pick up the horse's foot, I kind of move in and I put my hand down there and I say, give me your foot. That's all I say, give me your foot. Because I'm clear. I'm clear. Not because he understands my English. Sometimes it's a Spanish horse or a German, a Dutch horse. Yeah. So I just say, give me your foot. So I'm clear on it. And then he picks up his foot. And it happens like 9 out of 10 times. A horse I don't even know, I just step in and say, give me your foot.
Because you yourself are speaking
when
words.
I say it, I'm clear on it. I'm not thinking, give me your foot, but, you know.
Yeah. I love that.
So that intention, they pick up on your intention, and your intention can be just confidence. I just want you to feel safe. You know, that's the best thing to do, is just be confident, because that's what the horse wants, security. He doesn't want somebody to show him who's the boss. I don't like that term at all, because that's not what he wants. He wants to feel safe and confident. And so if you're safe and you feel confident, he'll pick up on it. And I was talking with Dr. Peters about it, and, you know, being the scientist that he is, he was saying, and this makes sense to me too, because I also, you know, think the same thing. They're so tuned into their environment. That's how they survive. And they're so tuned into their body language. It almost transcends physical movement or anything.
What advice would you have for people who, they listen to this episode and they're going, okay, I really want to help my horse. So when I come into the stall or I go out into the field and I want to work on my horse and their body and release the tension, I really, really want to do that because I love them and I want them to feel relief. What advice would you have about how do you go in with a neutral agenda? Like basically a non-agenda.
Yeah, I know.
How do you do that?
It's hard with your own horse. So I had trouble working on my own horses because I didn't even know I had an agenda with them. I go in like Annabelle and Jeremiah, okay, let's do some body work. And she was, you know, insulin resistant. So she had a lot of muscle tension in her body and bouts of laminitis. And it was hard not to, you know, have an agenda. And I wasn't even conscious of the agenda. I don't even know what it was.
Right.
Maybe it was, I know you've got insulin or metabolic issues. I know you're sore. I want to fix this. And that's another thing when we're teaching people to do the body work. You can't have the intention you're trying to fix something because the horse picks up on it. And you won't get the same results. And if you're doing the movement techniques and going through the body, you get an improvement, move on. Usually, what we want to do is, oh, there's something not moving here. And then you get a release. And okay, I'm going to do more, and then I'm going to do more. And if you have the intention you're trying to fix something, it's not going to work out right. Either the horse is going to internally block, or you're going to overdo it, and they're going to be sore.
Right.
So it's hard, you know, and especially with your own horse. So I was lucky because early on I was doing courses at home. And so I have students work on my horses and they got really good results.
I almost wonder whether, like, this is a great example. What you're suggesting is that it's actually good to not really know what's going on with the horse, because that will then filter or that will like affect the lens in which you see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then like when Mark and I are doing the clinic and we're talking about what we're seeing on the horse and everything, We're just making observations. We put it, I call it, you're gathering information about what's going on in the body. You put it on the shelf, and then you work on the horse.
How important is it to listen to the horse's feedback during a bodywork session? How can we listen to our horses when doing bodywork? So when you start to get to that threshold of like, okay, this is getting too much. And I remember yesterday you were like, I feel like G's done. You've been working on that sacroiliac area, which is an area that is thought that is that's an important area for him. And I could tell as an owner, I'm like, okay, like a little bit more, because we want
that's the biggest mistakes that I made is doing too much in the horse. So it comes from just working on, a lot of horses. The more horses you work on, you recognize, well, last time I did too much here, and so the horse just stopped responding, or
so that would be like a form of disassociation.
Yeah,
they would just go like they're overwhelmed.
Yeah, you're no responses. You go up to wiggle the head and neck, it's like nothing. So that's a clear sign it's too much. But so the more you work on horses and practice on horses, you start to recognize before that happens, and you stop before. So again, less is more. If there's any doubt, just stop, and do it later. Finish up later. And, when you're bringing the horse's attention to something that's uncomfortable, they will, like pin their ears all of a sudden. And sometimes you'll see them after you step back, after you got a release, you step back and you see what they have to say, and they'll stand there, and if they're blinking, twitching, like this, their feelings, the processing. But you watch the ears, sometimes they're blinking and twitching, and the ears will go flat, and then they'll come up again. Like they felt something uncomfortable. And some horses are very stoic, not necessarily breed-wise, but some breeds, like Frisians, can be really stoic, and the larger draft breeds can be stoic, and sometimes quarter horses. But it's not necessarily the breed. It's you learn pretty quickly what your horse is like if they're super stoic. You're going along and there's nothing, so you go really slowly and pay really close attention, and the eyelash moves. That's the response for this horse.
Yeah.
And so you wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and then they drop their head and a little looking through, and then they're back up again. So that horse is really stoic, and so you got to look for the smallest responses and wait longer sometimes. But it's kind of cool because you start to pick up on their personality pretty quickly. Like I can take care of myself, or absolutely not, or wow, this feels really good, and they just start doing it with you. You pick up, and then so you can pick up on how that sometimes and the owner often will confirm it. Oh yeah, this she's a little bit, this horse is a little bit of a drama queen, and they say, yeah, absolutely, just because the horse is, way overreacting and or making a big deal of it. And sometimes they're super sensitive and making a big deal of it, or sometimes they're just super sensitive and not making a big deal of it. But you can tell that they're feeling every little thing.
And I think this is really beautiful too. This is another tool in our toolbox to really explore and understand our horses on an individual level, right? Like, I'm sure you have seen that there are archetypes, that you can categorize different horses in different.
Yeah, you start to just kind of recognize, and it sometimes just pops into your head, something. Your intuition starts to kick in at some point after you're doing it. So, after you learn the Bladder Meridian, you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it, and then you step back to see what the horse has to say, and something will pop into your head. Well, go to the lumbar area, and you go there, and you find that there's something there. You're picking up on some of that body language that we're talking about.
Cool.
Super subtle, that you don't even know you're picking up on it. It's not conscious. It just says, go over here.
So would you call that intuition?
I call that intuition. Like you're seeing something you don't know you're seeing or feeling, maybe.
And that's why it's important for us to go in with as a blank slate with no agenda, because then we allow for things to come up as they're coming up, and we get to. It feels like I sometimes wonder whether intuition's like a muscle that we actually have to strengthen.
Maybe, yeah.
And the only way to strengthen it is actually to listen to it.
Right. Yeah. The only way to strengthen is listen to it. So it's kind of cool. Because I don't, think of myself as an intuitive person, but, I find myself stepping back, and then something pops in my head, and I go there, and wow, yeah, there's something here.
You don't think of yourself as an intuitive person, and yet
maybe
you built an entire modality, like a modality of bodywork from working with thousands of horses on the ground. I think that's pretty intuitive.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's co-creating.
Maybe it developed more, just doing it on horses. I think your intuition starts to kick in when you're not stop. You get out of your head, and you stop having an agenda. And but I think it also helped. When I was in my 20s, I learned TM, Transcendental Meditation. And the town I live in Fairfield, actually has the TM movement has a university there, Fairfield, Iowa. And I moved there initially I first went there in the 80s because I had friends that were going to the university and were meditators. And I meditated, but I didn't go to the university. And I don't meditate regularly now, but I meditate, now and then. But the thing is, once you experience that silence, then you know how to go there, in activity, because you integrate that into activity.
Yes. Okay. I think one last question before we dive into, I'm very excited to get your answers for our rapid fire.
Uh-oh.
What is the most important thing for owners to remember when choosing a bodywork style and determining which one works for their horse?
Probably just what resonates with them. I think just what resonates with them, and kind of what's the goal? Like, what's your goal for learning a bodywork modality? I always ask myself, what's the goal? Ask the owner, what's your goal for this horse? Is it to do 5-star eventing? In case we're going to have to work on the horse differently than if you just want to do trail riding 3 times a week. There might be a physical issue going on with the horse that isn't as important if you're going to just be trail riding. Don't mess with it. He's happy, just loosen it up, make him comfortable. But if you're going to go jumping, this could turn into a problem. So anyways, what's your goal for your horse? If you want to learn body, what's your goal? Is your goal to connect with your horse? Is your goal to learn as much during the process? You want to learn all the anatomy. You want to learn as much as you can about biomechanics, because that's what your interest or passion is, and you want to apply it to your horse. So what's your goal? You want something that's easy to learn. Like the Masterson Method is very practical. It's all about results and following the results. It's very practical.
I love that.
Yeah.
More of that in the world, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
One book to the horse world. I don't know. There's a lot. Mark's stories are really good because you learn lessons through the stories.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah. Me too.
Beyond Horse Massage is a good one.
There you go.
No, I think just learning by stories is good.
I love that.
Because it's about real life, it's not about theory.
Who is the most iconic horse in history?
Most iconic horse in history?
In your opinion?
Silver in the Lone Ranger.
Oh.
Hi-yo, Silver.
That's the first. You're the first one to say that one.
Yeah. I don't know, early on in life, what makes you want to be around horses. So.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Silver?
Well, one of it, yeah.
Cool. Most undervalued skill as a rider?
I guess it's just the undervalued skill as a rider is paying close attention to whether the horse is getting it or not, because we missed that. The horse got it, but we didn't get it, that the horse got it, and slowing down, I think.
Who is the greatest horse practitioner or horse health mind in history?
Well, the one who influenced me the most was that horse chiropractor.
Yeah. Do you remember his name?
Yeah,
But you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
No, the reason is that there's a little story behind it because, he let me go around and help him, and he didn't normally do that. But I wasn't pushy. I didn't ask a lot of questions. I just wanted to watch. And so I asked him at one point, can I apprentice with you? And he said, no, I don't teach people. And he said, one of the things he said at one point, he says, I'm happy to have you, come and watch and help and hold the lead. Sometimes I'd help him with something like a heavy leg or something. But he says, you can't tell anybody that you trained with Graham Boyd, because a lot of people watched him and then would go out and do what he was doing and say they trained with Graham Boyd.
And then they would hurt the horse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he says, as long as you don't tell anybody you trained. So I never said that. I said, I followed him around, I helped, but I didn't train with, he didn't train me. And it's funny because I was, after he said I asked him if I could apprentice, and he said, no, that, it wasn't practical anyways. I'd have to fly around all over and follow him. But anyways, I was driving back to Iowa from Wellington, and I was in Tennessee somewhere. I got a lead, to work on a horse in a barn, and I'm working on a horse in this this guy pulls up in a pickup, and he's a horse chiropractor, and he's over working on a horse. So I went to watch him, and I said, wow, that really, that kind of looks like, Graham Boyd. And he says, oh yeah, I trained with Graham Boyd. And so I thought, when I got home, I'm going to call Graham and see if this might be a guy I could learn from. And
if he did in fact train with
and I believed him.
Yeah.
But I said, would this be a guy that would it be safe for me to ask to, work with him? And he said, what's his name? And I told him, he says, I told that guy never to touch another horse in his life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we must be careful who we let touch our horses.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
Okay, last question before we wrap up.
Okay.
Mares, stallions, or geldings?
Well, stallions can be difficult, because of the testosterone, and but other than that, mares, geldings, I wouldn't want to have a stallion because I wouldn't want to have to, put the time and energy and potential that it would need to work with a stallion if I don't have any other reason to, if I'm not going to breed or anything, and I'm not competing. But between mares and geldings, either one would be fine with me. I wouldn't turn away either one. But and my mare was wonderful, But, geldings are just a little easier,
Jim?
I mean, in general. Yeah.
Yeah, in general.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For coming on the podcast.
It was fun.
That was so fun.
Thanks.